Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 865. My opponent started off with G3, a pretty rare opening move, although not unheard of. You can see it's the fifth choice here, after things like the English, the Reti, the E4 and D4 openings. So this is called the Benko's opening, or the Hungarian opening, as Lichess likes to call it. D5 is one of the main moves. It makes sense, just setting up a pawn structure here to oppose the bishop. Bishop G2 is one of the main ways of continuing with Benko's opening. I think Benko himself would play that way. Knight F3 could be played here and it would transpose into a Reti type of opening. But here, let's go with the game. I went D5, he went Bishop G2, and then I went Knight F6, another logical move, developing a piece, defending the center. And now he played B3, which is a pretty rare move. Benko himself in this position would play with Knight to F3 at this point and go for a Reti type setup with C4 here, trying to undermine Black's center, and that should be fine, should be an interesting way to play. B3 is, well, we're off in unexplored territory. This is just a double fianchetto. I mean, it's pretty solid for white, so I'm not going to be able to just destroy him, but white has pretty much given up any hopes of an opening advantage. C6 is not the most active way to play. I can actually play with E5 here, and if you know, if black can get in E5 and D5 by move 3, white has probably done something wrong. Although, of course, white will try and play against those pawns and prove that they are a weakness, you know, by trying to counterattack them, or at least a target. Anyway, I played with C6, which is okay. He went Bishop B2, and I went Bishop F5, getting my bishop outside the pawn chain. And here he went with E3, and we're just out of the opening book. He could still transpose into somewhat normal lines with a move like Knight F3, but anyway, he's got this setup that he wants to play, and he's just going for it. So let's look at this with the notation page. So this position is about even. You know, I think white is slightly worse here, but it varies between white is a little bit worse, or about even. Let's see. So I developed my knight here. I wanted to get in this move E5. That was actually part of my motivation in playing C6 to support the D pawn, is that then I don't have to use the E pawn to support it. I did get the bishop outside the pawn chain just in case I have to play the move E6, because white starts putting pressure on the center. But in this case, I'm able to get in the move E5 quite easily. It doesn't do anything to oppose it. I mean, the moves that white could play here to try and stop my plan of E5, he would have had to play them sooner, but he could have played moves like D4 and Knight to F3 to put some pressure on the dark squares. But he hasn't bothered to do that, so I get an E5. And H3 is another move. Maybe, you know, already you can tell that white is thinking about castling queenside, and he may be preparing to push the G-pawn forward, you know, with the tempo on my bishop. So that could be an idea here, and H3 is necessary to set that up. Anyway, I go Bishop D6, it goes Queen E2. Now it's even more obvious that white wants to castle queenside. And seeing that, you know, I was planning to castle kingside here. I got all my pieces out, got my pawns in the center. That's kind of the next step. But I thought, you know, I don't want to make it too easy for white. I just castle here and make a target for myself, and particularly if he's castled queenside, he can freely start throwing these pawns forward against my king. Now that should still be a playable type of position for black, because I haven't really made any mistakes, and so I should have enough defenses over here that shouldn't be a problem. But I thought, well, why not make him think for a little bit about whether he really wants to castle queenside? And so this move B5. I don't know. I mean, I think it's an interesting move. The chess engine doesn't approve of it all that much, although we're still in the range of about even or slightly better for black. So not a horrible move, but maybe not the best. But I think it's interesting. Like I said, he castled queenside. Anyway, he was basically just ignoring all of my moves up to this point. He just played these moves instantly. And that's a mistake, of course. At some point you have to pay attention to what your opponent is doing and respond to it. Now the fianchetto, the double fianchetto opening, you know, maybe the first 3 moves here, or 4 moves, he can probably play without thinking, because it's such a passive opening. You know, his pieces are all back, his pawns are all back, so he can play them without fear that anything will come under attack. But by this point, he's already in trouble. And, so I launch ahead with f5 because of his habit of ignoring my moves. He should have played something sooner to counter my plan. Anyway, now he starts getting counterplay on the king side, and you can see this is his plan. And I realized that I wanted to take on f4 here, and I realized that would potentially open up a line against my king. So I decided to castle at this point. Again, his attack is not so overwhelming here that I have to really worry about it. And at the same time, you know, I want to be able to take action in the center if need be, and I also want to bring this rook over to the queen side to join in on this side. So I think castling makes a lot of sense in this position. He pushes on with g4, and I don't want to go into retreat mode. That would be a mistake in this position, I think, so I move my pieces forward. And if he trades it off, well, he's giving up either, you know, some of his defending pieces or some of his attacking pieces. He does gain the bishop pair, but I think in this position I have a good enough attack here that I don't have to worry about that aspect of it. So he went ahead and continued taking. I mean, if he wanted to keep the bishop pair, he could try to find another move here, but I think this knight move is going to be kind of annoying, and it is in a position from here to jump into any kind of kingside attack. So anyway, he kept trading, so he doesn't even have the bishop pair advantage. And then he went on with f5. Now f5 is a big mistake, and I'm probably just winning after that. He could, I mean, I'm better in any case, but he could make a game of it by playing this move. This is a line suggested by the chess engine, d3. Try and open up the d file here where he has a rook nicely placed. Say I continue with my attack, he can take. Now, oddly enough, the chess engine gives two moves here, maybe more, but one of the moves is just to take and let him take the bishop and then take again. And that's kind of an unclear position. You know, I've given up a whole piece, I've gotten two pawns. I have this very advanced pawn. He can blockade it with his bishop. So it actually says black is slightly better in that line, but I think it would be difficult to prove over the board. Although, you know, that pawn all the way on a2 is going to be a sore spot, but I am down a piece. Anyway, the other line, which is also good for black, is just move the bishop out of the way. Say white finally develops his knight, then take. And then it's actually best for white to take with the c pawn rather than opening up the a file. But the a file gets opened anyway because that leaves the a pawn hanging. But anyway, the chess engine gives this as best play for white. You know, taking with the a pawn makes sense as well. But in either case, this is a kind of unclear position. I have you know, a great attack brewing along the a file, either in either position, and in this position the advantage, I guess, is that my queen can come in front of the rook, whereas in this position he sacrificed a pawn, but he got my rook in front of the queen, which maybe is not the configuration that's best for the attack. But black is better. I can't say black is better. I think this position was sort of in the balance, so I'd say this position is unclear, but I like black here. I mean, it seems like black is having all the fun, but white does have counterplay with this open file, these pawns that are potentially coming forward, or maybe he can open up the f file. Yeah, I really expected him to take and open up the f file at some point, but what he played here was a big mistake, f5, because now these lines are closed, so there's no attack at all, or I can't say no attack at all, but his attack is much slower than mine, and he can't really do anything about this. So I just push on. His best reply here is to sack a pawn, actually. Give up the b pawn, just try and keep lines closed over here for a little while longer, and queen over here to attack the center, and then knight to c5 to defend it, and it's a good position for black. Once again, it's a winning attack, but that's better than what he did. We went queen g2, immediately allowing me to open these lines. And now there's no way to avoid massive loss of material. This bishop a3 move was, I think, a good move. It wasn't the top choice of the engine, but it was one of the top 2 choices, I think. It pins that bishop. And this bishop is one of White's better pieces. It has 2 roles in this position. It's defending the king side, and it's also potentially looking at the center and to a future attack on my king if White ever got anything going. So getting rid of this piece is a big plus for me. He went ahead and took. I was wondering if I could get away with bringing the queen on and not taking back with the rook, but eventually I decided to take with the rook. This is also a good move. I'm not sure, actually. I didn't look at that queen move to see if that was winning. I wouldn't be surprised if that was winning too, but anyway, I took with the rook. So he grabbed a pawn. It doesn't matter what he does at this point, but I think he's trying to get his queen back over to the this side of the board where the king is, and it's just too late. So I bring my queen into a5. He plays c3 to give the king an escape route, and then I spotted the winning tactic here. So if you didn't see the game, you might want to pause the video here and see if you can spot the winning tactic. Black to move and win. Okay, yeah, this is all forced. The rook comes down with check. King comes up. The queen comes down with check. King goes to this square, and then knight here. Knight to c5 check. Forks the king and the queen, and he can't even he can't even defend the queen. The king has no squares to go to except back. And I grabbed the queen, and White resigned. So a very short game, but I had fun, and hope you guys enjoyed it too. And notice in this final position, actually, there's 2 forks here. There's this fork threatening, because of the pin, threatening the king and the rook, and there's this fork. He can get out of both of them by moving his king, but anyway, I am just a queen up in this position. So anyway, since these games were kind of short, I decided to make a bonus video, and I will be uploading that later today. So stay tuned, and I will see you later. Bye.